They don't warn you about this part. When money finally comes, not the kind you chased, but the kind that arrived, it can test your heart more than poverty ever did. In the first 10 seconds, let me say this clearly. Some blessings make noise, but the most powerful ones arrive quietly. If this message already feels like it's tapping on your heart, pause for just a moment and subscribe to the Peace Whisper. We talk about the kind of peace that survives success, not just struggle. Stay with me. There was a woman who prayed for years, not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly after Fajr, whispering needs she never posted about. One day, Allah opened doors she never knocked on. Income came from places she didn't expect, and something strange happened. People around her changed, advice poured in, opinions multiplied, eyes watched her moves. And that's when she learned the wisdom we're talking about today. When money comes from Allah, you don't announce it, you protect it. Because not every ear deserves to hear what Allah entrusted to you. Silence is not secrecy born of fear. Silence is wisdom born of trust. In the Quran, we're taught that Allah gives provision to whom He wills, in ways we cannot calculate. So when He gives, your first response is not celebration, it's alignment. Some people talk when they're broke, and talk even more when they're blessed. But wisdom says, let your gratitude be loud in sujud, not in conversation. Here's where many hearts slip. When money comes, ego wants credit. I worked hard. I deserve this. Look how far I've come. But the believer pauses and says, this is a test, not a trophy. Because the same Allah who gives can also gently take away, not as punishment, but as correction. In American culture, success is public. Numbers are shared, wins are posted. But spiritual intelligence teaches something different. It teaches restraint. It teaches you to move quietly while your heart stays loud with shukr. Think about this. Yaqub didn't tell everyone about Yusuf's dream. He warned him to keep it quiet. Not because the dream wasn't beautiful, but because not every listener has a clean heart. The same applies to your provision. When money comes from Allah, it's not just about what enters your bank account. It's about what exits your mouth. And here's the part people don't say enough. Silence doesn't mean isolation. You still seek counsel. You still give zakah. You still help others. But you choose who gets access to your story. Wisdom is knowing the difference between sharing and exposing. If this is resonating with you, let me know in the comments. Have you ever felt the need to protect a blessing instead of explaining it? I read your thoughts, and your experiences help this community grow. Because the real sign of wealth isn't spending, it's steadiness, it's peace. It's sleeping at night knowing your heart didn't attach itself to what Allah only meant to pass through your hands. And before you go, share this message with someone who's entering a new season, someone whose life is quietly changing. They may need this reminder more than they admit. Stay wise, stay grounded, stay grateful. And remember, when money comes from Allah, your silence can be an act of worship. Divine provision is not just about money entering your life. It is about how it enters and what it does to your heart when it arrives. Many people believe provision comes only after exhaustion, pressure, and endless striving. But Allah often delivers it in moments that leave you surprised, humbled, and quietly aware that this could not have been planned by human effort alone. That is how divine provision announces itself, not with noise, but with certainty. When provision comes from Allah, it carries a different energy. It does not agitate the soul or inflate the ego. Instead, it brings calm, responsibility, and a subtle awareness that you are now accountable for something sacred. This is why true believers don't rush to speak when money arrives. They pause. They observe their hearts. They ask themselves whether this blessing is pulling them closer to Allah or tempting them to forget Him. Divine provision often arrives after patience, not panic. After dua made with no guarantee except trust. After tears that no one witnessed. And when it comes, it exposes the difference between reliance on effort and reliance on Allah. Effort is necessary, but divine provision reminds you that effort alone was never the source. If it were, everyone who worked hard would be wealthy, and everyone who struggled would remain empty-handed. reality teaches us otherwise. One of the quiet signs of divine provision is that it arrives with instruction. Not spoken words, but internal guidance. You begin to feel cautious about what you say, careful about who you tell, sensitive about how you spend. This is not fear, it is awareness. A believer senses when a blessing requires protection rather than publicity. Allah does not give provision to elevate your voice, He gives it to elevate your character. And sometimes the test is not whether you will be grateful, but whether you will be restrained. Will you speak less? Will you resist comparison? Will you stop seeking validation from people who had no role in your journey? Divine provision asks you to trust Allah with your silence, just as much as you trusted Him with your dua. In a culture that celebrates visibility, divine provision invites privacy. In a society that equates success with display, Allah teaches His servants that preservation often comes through concealment. Not every blessing needs to be explained. Not every improvement needs to be justified. Not every win needs witnesses. Divine provision also teaches humility in a deeper way. It reminds you that what came easily can leave easily, not as a threat, but as a truth that keeps the heart soft. A heart that knows its provision is from Allah does not cling tightly to it. It holds it responsibly, spends it consciously, and remembers that wealth is a trust before it is a comfort. There is also mercy in divine provision. Sometimes Allah gives to heal wounds you thought would never close. Sometimes He gives to replace what was lost without announcement. And sometimes He gives simply to show you that He saw you all along. That kind of provision does not need applause. It needs gratitude expressed in obedience. Divine provision reshapes priorities. What once felt urgent becomes secondary. What once felt impressive becomes irrelevant. You start measuring success by peace, not numbers. By contentment, not comparison. By whether your heart still trembles in prayer, even after relief arrives. And this is why silence becomes wisdom. Because divine provision is not meant to impress people, it is meant to refine the believer. Silent gratitude is not the absence of appreciation. It is appreciation expressed in its most refined form. It lives in the private moments between a servant and Allah, where words are unnecessary, because the heart already understands. When a blessing arrives quietly, gratitude responds the same way. Not every form of thankfulness needs to be witnessed, and not every acknowledgement needs an audience. Many people confuse gratitude with announcement. They believe saying, Alhamdulillah, publicly is enough, while the heart remains unchanged. Silent gratitude, however, alters behavior. It changes how you spend, how you speak, and how you move through the world once ease replaces hardship. It is gratitude that shows up in restraint, not performance. When Allah gives, the believer does not rush to display the gift. Instead, there is a pause, a moment of internal accounting. You begin asking yourself whether this blessing will bring you closer to Allah or make you careless. Silent gratitude begins with that self-awareness. It asks you to protect what was given by honoring its source. There is a special dignity in thanking Allah without broadcasting what He gave you. It preserves sincerity. It shields the heart from pride and protects the blessing from unnecessary attention. Gratitude spoken too loudly can sometimes turn into self-celebration, while gratitude kept quiet often deepens humility. Silent gratitude also teaches patience with people. Not everyone will be happy for you. Not everyone needs to know your provision. When gratitude stays between you and Allah, you free yourself from seeking approval, praise, or reassurance. You stop measuring your blessing by how others respond to it. In American culture, gratitude is often paired with visibility. Success stories are shared, milestones are posted, achievements are announced. Silent gratitude challenges that norm. It says your peace is more valuable than public affirmation. It prioritizes inner stability over external applause. One of the signs of silent gratitude is increased responsibility. You become more careful with money, more intentional with time, more mindful of the impact of your choices. You understand that gratitude is not just a feeling, it is stewardship. It is honoring the blessing by using it in ways that align with faith and ethics. Silent gratitude also deepens your relationship with Allah. When blessings are acknowledged privately, dua becomes more intimate. Prayer becomes less about asking and more about maintaining closeness. The heart learns to recognize Allah's generosity without demanding constant proof. There is also healing in silent gratitude. Some blessings arrive after deep loss, long delays, or quiet suffering. Announcing them may reopen wounds or invite comparisons you are not ready to navigate. Silence, in this case, is not secrecy, it is gentleness with your own heart. A gratitude that is silent tends to be consistent. It does not fluctuate with attention or recognition. It remains steady whether people notice or not. This steadiness builds emotional resilience and spiritual maturity. You learn to rely on Allah's approval rather than human acknowledgement. Silent gratitude refines intention. It strips away the desire to be seen as blessed and replaces it with the desire to remain worthy of the blessing. You become more focused on sustaining what Allah gave than showcasing it. This shift protects both the heart and the provision. When gratitude lives quietly, it influences how you treat others. You become more generous without announcement, more compassionate without expectation, more willing to help without credit. Silent gratitude turns blessings into sources of goodness rather than tools for self-definition. Over time, silent gratitude transforms perspective. You stop asking, "How can I show this?" and start asking, "How can I honor this?" You recognize that some of the greatest acts of thankfulness are invisible, known only to Allah, and carried gently in the heart. Wisdom in restraint is the quiet discipline of knowing when not to speak, when not to display, and when not to act, even when you have every ability to do so. It is not weakness, and it is not fear, it is clarity. When Allah places provision in your hands, restraint becomes a form of intelligence that protects both the blessing and the believer. Many people think wisdom shows itself through expression, but restraint reveals wisdom more accurately. Anyone can talk about what they have, but it takes maturity to guard it. Restraint asks you to slow down in a world that rewards urgency. It teaches you to pause before sharing, before explaining, before justifying what Allah has already written for you. When money comes from Allah, it often arrives with an unspoken instruction to be careful. Careful with words, careful with reactions, careful with visibility. This care is not about suspicion of others, but about responsibility toward the gift itself. Not everything that is good needs to be exposed to opinion. Wisdom in restraint shows up in conversations. You learn to answer questions briefly. You stop oversharing details that invite unnecessary curiosity. You recognize that some questions are not asked out of concern, but comparison. Restraint allows you to keep your peace without offending or withdrawing completely. In American culture, openness is often praised as authenticity, but wisdom teaches discernment. Authenticity does not require full access. You can be honest without being transparent about every detail of your life. Restraint helps you choose what serves growth and what merely satisfies curiosity. Restraint also guards the heart from arrogance. When blessings are spoken about repeatedly, the heart can slowly shift from gratitude to entitlement. Wisdom interrupts that shift. It reminds you that what you have is temporary and trusted, and subject to Allah's will at any moment. There is also emotional protection in restraint. When you speak less about your provision, you expose yourself less to judgment, envy, or misplaced advice. You conserve energy that would otherwise be spent explaining your choices or defending your circumstances. This conservation allows you to remain focused and grounded. Wisdom in restraint influences spending as well. It encourages moderation even when abundance is available. It teaches you to delay indulgence, to consider long-term impact, and to prioritize benefit over appearance. Restraint turns wealth into a tool rather than a temptation. Restraint does not mean hiding blessings out of shame. It means honoring them with discretion. There is a difference between concealment driven by insecurity and restraint driven by insight. One weakens the heart, the other strengthens it. When restraint is practiced consistently, it builds inner authority. You become less reactive to opinions and less dependent on affirmation. Your confidence is no longer tied to recognition. It is rooted in trust that Allah sees and knows. Wisdom in restraint also deepens spiritual focus. Fewer words create more space for reflection. Less explanation leaves room for remembrance. When the noise of validation is removed, the heart becomes more attentive to guidance. Restraint refines relationships. You learn who respects boundaries and who pressures for access. You observe who celebrates your well-being quietly and who seeks details for their own reasons. This awareness helps you maintain healthier connections. Over time, wisdom in restraint becomes a natural rhythm rather than a forced behavior. Silence feels comfortable, not heavy. Decisions feel deliberate, not rushed. You begin to value what is preserved over what is displayed, understanding that some blessings remain intact precisely because they were handled with care. Spiritual accountability begins the moment a blessing enters your life and your heart realizes it is no longer just about relief, but about responsibility. When Allah places provision in your hands, He is not only easing your situation, He is inviting you into a higher level of awareness. This awareness is what transforms wealth from a comfort into a trust. Accountability is often misunderstood as pressure, but spiritually it is clarity. It sharpens intention and redirects focus. You begin to understand that money is not proof of Allah's approval, nor is it a measure of your worth. It is a test of how closely your actions align with your values. Once ease replaces struggle, when provision increases, spiritual accountability asks different questions than before. Not how much you have, but how you obtained it. Not how fast you can spend it, but how thoughtfully you manage it. Not who sees it, but who benefits from it. These questions quietly shape behavior long before outward change is visible. One of the signs of spiritual accountability is increased mindfulness. You become more aware of where your money goes, how your time is used, and what your choices reflect. You begin to sense when something feels excessive or unnecessary, not because it is forbidden, but because it distracts the heart. Spiritual accountability also reframes generosity. Giving is no longer about recognition or relief of guilt. It becomes an act of alignment. You give because you understand that provision flows, not because you want to be seen as charitable. This kind of giving is often quiet, consistent, and deeply intentional. There is also restraint in spiritual accountability. You resist lifestyle inflation even when you can afford it. You pause before upgrading everything at once. You ask whether a purchase brings benefit or simply feeds impulse. Accountability does not forbid enjoyment, but it filters it through awareness. In a society that encourages consumption as self-expression, spiritual accountability teaches self-regulation. It reminds you that fulfillment is not proportional to spending. Peace is not purchased, it is preserved. This understanding protects the heart from becoming attached to what was meant to serve it. Spiritual accountability deepens prayer. Dua shifts from constant asking to thoughtful reflection. You begin to ask Allah to help you use what you have wisely, to protect you from misusing it, and to keep your heart soft despite ease. These prayers reveal maturity in faith. Another layer of accountability appears in influence. When provision changes your position, people watch differently. Your choices carry more weight. Spiritual accountability recognizes this influence and treats it with care. You become more aware that your behavior may encourage or discourage others in ways you never intended. Accountability also